everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I have this exciting painting to share with you. This is a cup of cherries with hyper-realistic, fun water drops coming down that are super beginner-friendly. I'm going to break down everything that you need to know to create this for yourself at home. So if you're not sure how to create this painting, no worries. I'm going to tell you every single step in detail. To help me do that is my husband, John.
Hello.
He helps me bring these lessons to you each week, each day, each month by making sure the cameras all turn on and that they're pointed at what I'm teaching and describing. Because I am going to tell you the techniques. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, but being able to see it is the other half of that formula. Now, also part of the formula is in the description down below. I've got a free traceable, so I don't expect you. I'm going to show you how to freehand this out, but if you don't want to do that, that's okay. I've got a traceable. The materials are down there, links to the website, everything that you're going to see in today's show. I have an art store. Just if you need something, it's a good thing to go. That's in the description down below. Traceables in the description down below. Traceables totally free. This is part of Acrylic August, a 31-day painting challenge where from August 1st to August 31st, I meet with my community every single day and give them a new and exciting painting that teaches them a new art skill. So they come out of that 31 days significantly better painters and more fatigued painters, but significantly better painters. So if you're here for the daily painting, I want to say, hi, congratulations. Good job that you're still going. I'm so proud of you. That being said, there's nothing to do but get your paints, get your brushes, and come right back. I'm going to show you how to paint this cup of cherries. Today's class is an 8x8 canvas. I'm using the Art Alternatives Classic Cotton. I really like these canvases if you're looking for a good canvas, but you can use whatever you have. I have Mars Black, Burnt Sienna, Phthalo Green, CAD Yellow Medium, CAD Red Medium, Quinacridone Magenta, Ultramarine Blue, Dioxazine Purple, Titanium White. This right here is satin glazing liquid, and I probably will use some fluid acrylic in white. You don't have to have that. You could just add water to your heavy-bodied acrylic and thin it out. And then I also have a mister bottle with water in it. It's just got water. It doesn't have another medium in it. Shall we throw up step one? Step one, we're going to have some fun.
It has begun.
I'm going to paint the whole canvas black. That's how we're going to start. I'm going to just do it directly from my tube of paint. You guys can do it however you want to, direct from palette to canvas. I'm just making sure that I can paint it all black. Sometimes it takes 2 coats of black to get a nice finished black thing. I'm misting with water. I'm doing that just to make it easy to spread out. And I'm going to use a 1-inch oval mop to brush out all this paint. Yeah, just paint the whole canvas black. Isn't that fun? This isn't like the correct way to paint a whole canvas a solid color. This is just some nonsense I've gotten into since I've been on YouTube.
It doesn't seem like a bad way of doing it. It gets it done.
It's not. It's fun for me. It gives me a little extra entertainment on certain days like you need. And just making sure that the paint goes around the edges far enough so that if I frame it, and then I'm also making sure it smooths out enough so that I can sketch on here next nicely. What you should have is a solid, even coverage of black. If your black is streaky, what you need to do is dry it thoroughly, do another coat of black, dry that thoroughly, and then meet me at the next step. If your canvas is a nice solid black, you don't need to do another thing except dry it thoroughly and meet me at the next step. So it just depends on the kind of coverage that you have. I do like to wash out my brush between uses so the paint doesn't dry on it. Okay, so let's dry everything, and when we come back, I will show you what we do next. So now I want to sort of loosely sketch in my drawing. This is the stage you would use the traceable. If you're doing the traceable, this is when you would use it. I'm going to use a T-square and come up just below the third, not quite a full third up the canvas, and make a nice kind of line. This will be a slight implication of a table space that we have there. Then I'm going to sketch up kind of loosely at first my little jar. I do a little vertical line, and then we do curve line, what I consider the width of the cup to be. And this is where I kind of make that decision. How wide is my cup going to be? I'll use my T-square in a minute to I got to make sure that I like the spacing of that. Okay. This is a cherry. I like to do cherries kind of like a little bump. They have a little bit of sort of shape to them. Sometimes I do them more round. Things that are organic tend to have like interesting form. I might speak a little bit about where the stems are. There we go. Nice counter on the stems where they layer beautifully. Now I want to make sure my top of my cherries will be kind of up here. I'm just loosely sketching in the cherries, and I'll put the lip back. Let's kind of keep this a straight line. I like using chalk. What I'm using here is a Dritz chalk tool. This is just regular chalk that's in this nice cartridge system. You get this. This is for generally sewing, actually. This is a tailor chalk tool. I can get these at Joann's and online. You could also just use kids' chalk, like what you use on a chalkboard. And that would be okay as well. So then we're going to kind of stack some cherries. I'm going to stack some cherries. It's okay to take a minute and just really think about how you're drawing out your cherries and how they're going to take up the space. We're just giving ourselves enough information. This one has a little stem curving here. This one has a little stem going up. This one has a little stem going up this way. This one has a stem going that way. All right, so we've got some little stems going too that have some nice, interesting sort of layout. The only thing about sketching in the chalk like this, and your guys' traceable is based off of my finished painting, so that's how you end up with the same thing that I have. I just freehand it either on paper or direct on canvas. Okay. I think that's enough chalk lines to be able to block in the painting, John.
I think that's pretty good.
We're going to block it in. Let's block it on in. Step 3, block all the main colors in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my ultramarine blue over to my Mars black. Add a smidge of white. Make a fairly dark blue-gray. And just paint in the cup with this blue-gray. Just painting the whole thing blue-gray. I like to sort of just check my lines here. I tilt a little bit so I can see it better. Remember, you can always hang your painting on the wall and stand back from it. A little more blue. That's ultramarine blue, Mars black, and a little bit of gray. Might thicken that in a little bit. A little bit of handle and perspective. And don't worry about getting messy anywhere with anything, because you can come back with like black and clean up anything. See how I can do?
I do.
All right, that's looking good so far. Then I'm going to take a little bit of my burnt sienna and my Mars black, make a deep brown. Kind of paint around my little cherries a bit. If I get a little over my cup, I can come back and just pick that back up. I don't have to, not stuck with it.
It's a very dark painting. Sometimes I have to see the reflection to see it kind of on an angle to catch it.
Here, I can tip it if that'll help.
You're fine.
We're doing kind of dark colors, right? So we're starting this very, very dark.
Yeah.
Very dark. Now I'm going to switch. I was using a 3/4 inch Catalyst by Princeton. So this is the 3/4 inch angle brush by Princeton in the Catalyst line of brushes. Now I'm going to switch to a number 6 sepia round from Raphael. And I'm going to take a little bit of my Doc's purple over to my Cad red with a little bit of my Quin magenta. I'll make kind of a dark Merlot color. And this is definitely to what you were saying. Things will be kind of dark. And just paint in the cherries with the dark.
Having to adjust that there so that it's a little more accurate.
Yeah, just a very dark burgundy. And you can see I leave little signs of my, like little dark areas between, so I can see where I've painted cherries. I'll be coming back and painting these with much darker purples between them, but this helps me keep the forms separate. Sometimes I might add a little more red into it, so it's more than just the form. Just paint those in. This is what's called an underpainting, where we block in elements of the painting that are deep and dark, we start doing with the darker shadows. And we're just giving that, not the darkest value that we have, but close to it. And that just lays in what we've got. My very first acrylic April, I did a bowl of cherries. So, kind of coming back and visiting the subject of cherries again. It's not bad. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my burnt sienna, my phthalo green, make kind of a very dark green, and then I add some yellow into it, and I get a green gold. Now the end of a cherry stem is kind of thick. So these are just light little stems that we're doing. A little bit thicker on that. There we go. That is how you block in an underpainting. It's just a early kind of thing. We'll clean up our chalk lines, we'll clean up what we've got, and then we'll come back and start painting in some details. So, but let's dry everything with our hairdryer first. Now I'm going to start painting in my cup, and to do that I'm going to use my number 8 Raphael d'Artagnan D brush. If you don't have a D brush, you could use a filbert or a bright here. Either would work. I just like this brush because it has a blending side and a crisp side, and it's got hog bristles, which gives me very scratchy, good dry brushing. So those are reasons why I choose it, but you can use what you have and still get an okay result. Now, the other thing that I'm going to use here is also my number 6 sepia round, and I may clean up some of my lines now as I'm looking. I'm going to grab some glazing liquid. I'm going to grab my white over to my Mars black and ultramarine blue. I'm going to come here and just make sure that my little edge here has a good
highlight there.
Well, and curve.
Oh, yeah.
That the curve is good and makes sense. I can always come out here and sort of wiggle my brush. I'll be blending over it in a little bit. I just want to make sure that I've got a little more white than I would like. And a little bit of a brush on the turn of the handle. Just start to get that worked out. Okay, now I'm going to make sure that this right there is crisp. You want your cup edges to be crisp, right? Because that's what's going to give you... I'm just coming over this with a little bit of a damp brush to blend out a little more even. That's going to give you that metallic effect. So I'm going to take my D brush now and a little bit of my ultramarine blue, and a little bit of my black. I'm going to begin to brush in from this side a slightly darker color. to curve my brush stroke kind of in the direction of the cup. I may turn my cup this direction, and that's just so that I can make a nice crisp stroke on the edge of my brush. See how I'm doing?
I do.
So sometimes you move your canvas to improve your brush directionality. Little bit of blue, little bit of black. Now I'm going to start adding a little more white into this mix. And blending and brushing it back. I'm going to be using a very dry brush method. The reason I'm using a dry brush method is this is sort of a pounded metal. So it will have reflections, but they won't be high chrome reflections. And I'm scrubbling that in. See, I'm scrubbling it in. Scumbling.
I do. I see it.
Scumble, scumble. Just brushing it around. You can see I'm starting to get shape in the cup. I'll come on my side here. This side time has a little more blue on it. And I like how that worked out. I'm going to also do some vertical brushing. A little bit of white into my brush, a little more blue. A little black so that it stays gray. And let's highlight here again, turning the cup a bit. I'll work the handle in a second. I'm going to be lighter down here towards the bottom of the cup with my dry brushing and then be heavier up here. I scrimble up and down, kind of getting some multi-directional. Keep brushing little highlights in. Scumbly, scumbly, scumbly. See, we're scumbly. It's important to be scumbly. Where I get any kind of little heat, I brush it multi-directions. A little more blue, a little more white. I blend that out with a little dry brushing. So we're getting some bright, high reflections, aren't we? A little more blue in it. Scumbly, scumbly. Scribbly, scribbly. Just comes in beautifully. Now I'm going to go back to my little number 6 round. I'm going to grab a little glazing liquid on here and mix in some white. And come down here, I'll thin that line. Just brush that little highlight. Maybe not quite so bright, but definitive highlight down here. Little bit of blue, little bit of black. There's some white over here. Brush that down a little bit, just kind of trying to capture that turn. I'm going to come and get a little of my black and a little glazing liquid. Just clean up that line a bit. And I just brush and clean that out. So even if your lines get away from you on the handle, you don't have to worry. You just sit there and play with it, you'll get there. A little more blue. Just brush a little shadow on that. So we're just turning the handle, which I very, very much like. Now I want to dry everything with my hair dryer before I show you what we do next. I want to give some dimensionality to the wood down here. So I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red, my cad yellow, a little of my burnt sienna. I'm going to come here. I'll turn. I'm going to brush out a little bit. Just brushing them back and forth, a little bit of highlights to the wood. Now I'm going to put shadows back. Grab a little more yellow. Add a little kind of bright yellow right there. Just getting a little table kind of worked in now. It won't really kind of anchor until, grab a little bit of my Mars Black and Burnt Sienna. Still using my D-brush. Need a lighter load than that though. Sometimes the D-brush can load really heavily. Gonna just brush a little bit of that shadow color back. Grab a little bit of the shadow color of the table, right? We will have darker shadows that we do at the table.
The dark shadows.
Yeah. And if I have to, I'll grab, just to make sure that my background dark table is level, I can come back here, and if I need to go right through my cherry, I can. Now this is going to be very dark, almost as dark as the background. It just is a subtle little line that your eye can pick up, and if your eye is picking it up, it's going to want it to be level. Otherwise, it won't feel like a table. All right, that's a little bit of that front. It doesn't take a lot. We're just adding a little bit of lighting. I'm going to rinse out my D-brush and rinse out my number 6 round. Dry everything with the hairdryer and come back and put the next layer in. Now I'm going to use my number 0 Raphael D brush. This is in the texture line. You could use a small bright or a small angle for this, like a 1/4 of an inch brush, just to give you a little detail. If you don't have any of these, just do a round and wiggle your brush. I'm going to take a little bit of my Cad Red and my quinacridone magenta, mix them 1 to 1, make my bright cherry color. And I'm going to come here and start to shade out these little cherries. Just starting to pull them there, and I'm going to turn this direction so that I'll have to put the shadow back in there. But it looks really good. Now I'm going to take my brush right into some purple. And I'm going to begin to shade in the little divot in the top. Come right here and kind of come off the back end. Now if I have too much purple on my brush, what I do is I wipe my brush off with a towel. So you can see it's just a light pigmentation, and then I sort of dry brush and blend that in there. Little purple. And again, turning my brush. Check and see how those cherries they'll start to develop and come in. Grabbing a little bit of my Cad Red and Quin Magenta.
They emerge from the darkness.
They emerge. They do emerge. And I'm just brushing this way, just kind of working that in. But I'm going to come here into my purple. This is like, instead of using black, right? I'm making this Merlot cherry color. I'm bringing this down through here in the Merlot. Kind of very lightly blend out that little highlight. So we're trying to create lighter zones up on this upper right area that might be seeing a little more light.
Zones of light.
Yeah, like a little bit right here. Just brightening that up where we can. So I haven't rinsed my brush. And that means a little bit of purple and stuff ends up being in there. Now, I'm probably going to paint out the stem for a second, just because I just want to get this one shaded and put in. And I grab a little purple on there. And then just shade that right there. So we're just pulling those in. And I did lose my stems a little bit, and that's okay, because I wanted to unthicken that one stem anyways. Like I could go ahead and take the time. I know where my stem is going to go, but I could grab some black.
Yeah.
And just come here and make sure that this is much thinner coming off here, and then I can put it back in a little bit. Just thin stems, I'll get them back in a second. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of our cad red and our quinacridone magenta, and we've got one little sort of cherry here. And then another one right there. So we can kind of see just the little pops of cherry. It's got just a pop of cherry. Grab a little more cad red. Come here and kind of I can always like knock things back. Sometimes I'll wipe my brush off and then just
keep going.
Very carefully smooth stuff out. Just cherrying along. Cherry, 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 cherry. Kind of like marsh.
Right? Okay, keep putting those cherries in there. I like the overhead view better on this one. I can see it better here from the overhead.
Yeah?
Yeah. Just, sometimes especially the darker ones, you can see them better from the overhead.
Yeah. Well, and this is definitely one of those ones with dramatic lighting and just adding that little shadow down there. It's kind of just fun. We get the high reflections in the water drops. It just is going to all come together super, super well. I'm going to do the purple right there. And again, I'm painting out the stem. And that's just because as I get into it, I can always put it back. And the little purple. Just come right here and just a little shadow right there. But not as dark as the divot in the stem. Oh my goodness. So we just did a bunch of work there.
Oh yeah.
Now we're going to want to dry everything with our hair dryer. When we come back, I'll show you what we do next. So now I'm going to take my number 6 round and I'm going to grab a little bit of my Mars black and my ultramarine blue again and make my dark metal blue-gray. And I'm going to very carefully kind of tip this, and I'm going to make a little seam along here that I very lightly brush out. It's parallel to the lip. And the big thing is just try to make sure that it's right there, a little bit of a metal seam there. Maybe a little more light in here. Just kind of make sure that that is more connected to the cup. Kind of come through the middle and a little bit of a diminishing shadow. Just turn the little lid there. Now while I'm at it, I'm going to take some of this dark color, some glazing liquid on it. A little more of this dark color. I'm using my D brush here. Come along this far edge. And down low. Now, I'm going to brush this out a little bit, and then I'm going to wipe my brush off and kind of scumble and blend my glazed shadow. See how we're doing? Sometimes we don't really even see it until it's dry. That's looking pretty good. We'll rinse that out. And I'm going to use my smaller D brush, my number 0 D brush. And again, where I'm using a D brush, you could use a filbert, you could use a bright. On the small one, you can use a round. I'm going to grab, I think, a little of my dioxazine purple and my Mars black together. And some glazing liquid. And I'm going to come here and under the cherries. Now I may have to come in and clean up, like I think I over trimmed that cherry. And I'll have to come back and clean that up. because I want my round to be where it is. And then I'm going to just blend this glaze out. Kind of rub that with my finger just to make sure it doesn't have a hard line, because shadows should be sort of soft. I could use my brush to do this too. Let's see how that looks. Oh look, see, everything's anchored down now. That's the thing you want, is you want everything to anchor down. Shadows add weight and dimension to the painting. On this back edge, I'm going to come here with this sort of dark, dark, dark color. Very carefully brush that. Gets lighter as it comes up, but this sort of pulls that cup into the darker, darker shadow. And then just very lightly blending it in. See how I'm just very lightly blending it in?
I do.
All right, so then we're creating that kind of curved little shadow there. Now I'm going to want to dry everything. Dry, 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 dry it.
Super dry it.
Super dry. And then we're going to come back and continue on this fun journey. So I'm going to want to pop and bring forward some of the cherries. So I'm going to take a little bit of my Cad Red and my Quin Magenta and make a brighter color. I can even get some glazing liquid into this, kind of creating some transparency. I'm going to come here and add a little bit of a highlight to the side of that cherry, and also here. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll wipe off my brush and then use a slightly heavier brush to sort of blend this out. See, I'm blending it out.
I do.
Just softly nudging it and letting it transition gently into the shadow. So we're just creating these bright areas of red. And then I'm going to just circle, 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 circle. Blend, 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 blend.
Blend, 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 blend.
Blend, 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 blend. So I'm not taking away the work I've done. I'm just glowing it up.
Sure.
There we go. Just gently kind of blend that in. We want the cherry to feel round. And that's feeling rounder. You can always push the shadows back with the purple. See how we do?
Yeah.
And always push the shadow back with the purple. I can also come here with a little bit of the blue-gray color on the tip of my brush and very carefully make sure that this is a crisp edge. So one of the things about dark paintings is that they are really enjoyable to paint, but they're also sometimes a lot of work to paint. Just bringing this right here. Then I'm going to wipe my brush off. Kind of blend that. Take a look in how they're looking pretty good right now.
Pretty incredible.
Right? They're looking pretty good. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red, maybe even some of my cad yellow. And I'm going to come a couple places. I'm going to come here. Just very lightly. Kind of work in some of that bright orange. If I've got to wipe it off my brush, I will. Try to brush it back. Get that little bright highlight. Come along this little lip there. And a little bit back there. This is just my cad red. Along that little shadow. Kind of there. Believe you me, we've got some wet reflections and some high shine reflections, and that's when our cherries are going to be like, what?
Right, yeah.
So cherry? Our cherries will be so cherry. I'm going to come here and add just a smidge. And perhaps a little smidge there. And to make sure it stays a smidge, I'll wipe my brush off and then just very kind of nudge. Nudge, nudge, nudge. Around the little shadow there. Kind of nudge. And just a little bit. Right there. So I do love the shape of this brush to get around curves. Make sure my tape's in all the right places. My tape will move when I pick my brush up a lot. When I pick my canvas up a lot. Let's dry everything with our hairdryer. So now I want to kind of get in my stems. I'm going to use my number 6 sepia round. And I'm going to get into my cad red, my cad yellow, and a little burnt sienna. I'm going to come to the edge of this little stem here. Kind of tap some of that up into the little stem. And then I'm going to come right here and do the same. I'll have to kind of curl that one back around, but I think it's going to end right about there. So that's where I'm going to put that little stem. I'm going to come here to my green and yellow, but I haven't rinsed my brush, if you'll notice. Makes it more of a green gold. A little bit into that stem. A little bit there on that little edge. A little bit up that way. Come here. curve that stem around and go into it. Tap in a little of that highlight. Looking pretty good. I'm going to grab some of my green, brown, just a smidge of yellow. Sometimes I have to come through and pick up some water because my brush will drop an extra drop of water from the bucket. Brush that little line up there, so we're just thickening out the stems. Just adding a little bit of the shading in. A little bit of the green in there. And in this particular case, I'm going to start putting out my fluid white acrylic. So you can either thin your heavy-bodied white with water, add a couple of drops of water and mix that sort of in to thin it. Or you can use craft bottle paint. Or you can grab like one of these. They come in like a tiny 2 ounce, and the 2 ounce like lasts forever. So you don't have to buy the big one. Oh, I let it plug. That's a thing that I do wrong on occasion. So what I'm going to have to do is just pour. Don't allow your bottles to plug. I'm going to pour real slowly because I don't need very much. Little highlights. That's big, big, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just paying attention to the stems a little bit. These just give our little stems just an extra little pop. Just a little bit on the half. Look at those stems go now.
Yeah.
Those stems are all about it, I think, are doing quite good. Okay, let's call that step. We don't really have to dry anything, and we're going to start adding some reflections to the cherries. I'm going to take a little bit of my ultramarine blue and a little of my titanium white. Mix up a very, very light blue. And take that to my glazing liquid. Now I'm going to come along a little cherry here. Add a little bit down. And then what I'm going to do, and this is interesting, I'm going to squeeze the paint out of my brush, and it's sort of flattened. If you'll notice, this is my round. I'm going to kind of nudge. Nudging is one of my favorite techniques. I can clean my brush and come back and even remove some. Just grab a little bit here. Just starting to get these little reflections in.
It really looks nice with the reflections. I like how it really brought it to, to the forefront. Brought it to the front of the scene.
It really does. Smooth. I wipe off with the towel and kind of blend out. Wipe off, kind of blend out. I like it where we can start to get these where the reflections are transparent, and then we can also add some white highlight reflections like right here. See, that pulls that whole like front going. I can come here and add a little bit of a reflection on the inside there. Still a little reflection on the outside here. Add a little reflection on the far side. Okay, let's dry everything. I'm going to take my brush, and I've squeezed out the extra water, and I'm going to kind of flail it out. I'm going to get a littlest amount of my white paint on here. I'm going to very gently come in and add some bright reflections. It's like the hot or highlighted reflection. It's just a little bit hotter on this. That looks pretty good. That pops it. Now, when we come back, we're going to start adding the water drops. Let's dry everything, and let's add a bunch of water drops. So now I'm going to put in some water drops. To do that, I'm going to take a little bit of my black and my blue together. And I'm going to get my glazing liquid involved. And I'm going to come right here and paint the shape of a downward water drop.
Yeah.
I'm going to come here and paint another. And then another. And then a few little speckles. All right, so that's going to go there.
Yeah.
Rinse those out. And then I'm going to come here and taking my Doc's purple and my glazing liquid. Come here and add a water drop. A few little extra drops here and there. Just a few here and there. Then I'm going to come through and wipe out my brush and pick up any sort of extra too much glaze. So I'm like squeezing out my brush and then grabbing the extra.
I do.
This also helps the water drop look not be so uniform.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
This should give me like a little sort of dark shadow where the drops are going to be that I can play with the highlights on. Okay, so let's try everything, and when we come back, I will show you what we do next. Now I want to come in and put some highlights back in. I'm going to take a little bit of my light blue-gray color that's right here, that's got my ultramarine blue, Mars black, and a lot of titanium white. And I'm going to come in and gently, kind of lightly dust in the reflection. And then we paint it kind of wide up here. Just tapping up and down. Sometimes it's good to roll off your brush. Just little highlights right here. Then I'm going to take a little bit of my pure white. Add a little bit of that pure white reflection to that top. A little bit down that water drop. And the front lensing. So hot white there, front lensing up the front of the drop. Just adding a little bit of a white highlight. The little ones kind of give you that. Now, there's some interesting lensing that happens here. So I'm going to take my shadow color, which is my black and blue. I'm going to very carefully come out here. And extend the shadow. And you can come in and even take a little bit of just the smallest amount of white and come in here and just run that lensing down. So now we have some nice little water droplets. Okay, let's dry everything and we come in. We will add these to the cherries. So I'm going to start adding some of the highlights to the front of the water droplets. I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red and my cad yellow. I'm going to come in here and highlight the front. Just very carefully coming through here and highlighting the front. It's really the same process that we did down on the can, but we're just doing it for the color scheme of the cherries.
That's interesting.
And where we have the light entering and exiting here, we've got to continue. Just continuing down with the red and the yellow. And come back into my white. And so there's a lensing effect, and that's kind of what we're painting, is the way the water is impacted by light, the way the light travels through a water drop.
Yeah.
And we're just painting that. We don't paint the things we can't see, like invisible water. We paint the impact that it has on light around it. Done a lot of classes on water drops.
Yep.
They're always fun. Because they're one of those things that just adds a lot of, well, it's just dimensionality.
Boom.
It does, doesn't it? It goes boom. I'm going to take a little bit of my Doc's purple and my red. And come back over here and very carefully paint the forward shadows. I never know which one will be the most popular of an acrylic April season, but I bet you that there's a lot of people who this is their most favorite. Yeah. Because this is just one of those techniques that once you get it, you love that you have it. Now, if I paint out my water line, I can always put it back in, but take a step back because oftentimes you'll be like panicked and then it's actually fine. I feel like those little water droplets are just popping off those cherries.
They really are.
Sometimes I'll trim that out there while I'm here. There we go. All right. I can also, like if I want to add a little bit of
highlight color,
orange into the shadow that's the lensing, I can do that as well. A little bit there, just a couple places. I think I'm really actually there. All right, guys, guess what time it is?
Time to sign.
Time to sign, because we did the lovely little cherries with water drops. I mean, that is just what was called for, I feel. I'm going to get my little detail brush here. This is a number 1 Raphael detail. I'll grab kind of like actually maybe in this one case I'll get more of a red. Just because it's so present in the painting. But I want to make sure it's going to flow for the signature.
You know what we can do? We'll make this our 14th step. The 14th step.
Why? Because you're
so superstitious. And the 14th step will be to sign the painting.
I don't know if I'm superstitious, but sometimes I knock on wood. Look, magical thinking is magical thinking.
Hey,
I don't know what to tell you.
I'm not opposed to it. I will take all the bonuses that I can get. They help.
They do.
Knock on wood bonus.
Knock on wood bonus.
Don't step on a crack bonus.
The most important bonus. There we go. I got a signature on there.
Yay.
Barely, but I got it. All right. When we come back, I'll tell you what you do next. Well, the next thing I would love you to do is share your painting with me. Hashtag the Art Sherpa, hashtag Acrylic August. Go online to any of the social media places and hashtag it. That'll pull it into my feed. The other thing that you can do is I have two groups. The Art Sherpa official, you can do any of my tutorials in that group, in any medium that you want to do them in. We have a lot of digital painters and watercolors. They do the tutorials and they do them in oils, watercolors, digital medium, and that is completely cool. But also we have the Acrylic August group, which is for the acrylic paintings that you do for this particular challenge that you're doing with me in these tutorials, and you can share that there. Both groups are closed, curated, and monitored, so we don't allow any meanness in any of the groups. So if you've got a place you want to like come in and be like, I did water drops and it blows my mind how much fun that technique was, it's the perfect place to come and definitely share that with us. I would love to see that there. John loves to see it. We're in the groups all the time. I'm checking them all the time. If I didn't get to your question during the show, you can definitely leave it in the description down below. There's a comment section. Just ask your questions in the comments. You can also say like, good job too. I like that as well. Whatever you feel like you need to say to me, you can leave that in the comment section. I never say this, but it's nice to give the video a thumbs up if you feel like learning how to do water drops was cool. Because I feel like it is. So that's another thing that you can do. And the other thing that you can do is to give yourself credit for having completed a painting. It's like every time you complete one of these, you are putting one in the win column. You're going win, 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 win. So pat yourself on the back. And with that note, I want you to be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I will see you at an easel real soon. Bye-bye.